After decades of waiting, 4 movies of build-up and 2 different directors, we finally have a Justice League movie. The end result is, Justice League picks up after the events of Batman v Superman, and because of the death of Superman, the world has started to descend into fear and hopelessness. Because of this, an evil force is drawn to the Earth to conquer it, and Batman must unite a group of metahumans in order to stop this evil force. Now, to give you a point of reference, I actually enjoyed Batman v Superman. I fully acknowledge its many story issues and problems with the characterizations, but there's a lot of things in that movie that I enjoyed quite a bit. And if that movie struggled because it was too ambitious and tried to do too much, this movie feels like it struggles because it aims too low and struggles to do too little. Now, before I give my full thoughts on it, be sure to put your thoughts down below in the comment section and give me a point of reference. Did you like Batman v Superman? Did you like Man of Steel? Let me know. So with all that said, let's start talking about the good. The best thing about this movie is the Justice League itself. The actors they cast for this batch of characters, I think, are across the board really great. Ezra Miller is probably the one people are going to be talking about the most. He brings the most levity and fun to it. It's a totally different interpretation from what you see on the CW, while still being true to the character and his quirkiness, intelligence, and the fun side to him that he brings to things that feels right, and a unique sense of humor that this guy that hasn't been in a bunch of fights, he's not a battle-worn veteran or anything like that. What would he bring as this neurotic personality to this dynamic group of people in this sort of action-based situation? Moving along, we get more from Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and of course she does a great job and has some fun action sequences in there. There's some nice clash between, well, Bruce Wayne and almost all the characters as he's trying to be the leader of this group and bring them together, so he has these character moments with all of them. Of course, Jason Momoa as Aquaman is a cool guy. If you follow him on social media, you just know the sort of vibe and bravado he brings to the character that makes it a lot of fun. And then sprinkled in there, of course, you got Jeremy Irons as Alfred, that is good as always with his kind of snark that he shoots back at Bruce Wayne. We get a little of Gordon in the movie. Not too much Gordon, just a little bit. That's just a nice little flavor to add to the movie. Now, without wanting to say too much about Superman's role in the movie, they do find some ways to correct some mistakes they made with the characterization in the previous films. And since this is a Zack Snyder movie, you get a lot of just kind of gorgeous shots in the movie that look like they're pulled straight out of a comic book and put onto the screen. The action's shot in a way where you can see what's happening and there's wide enough angles on things. There's some cool choreography at different parts in the movie. And so just some elements like that that really work. The movie's under 2 hours, and so it keeps a nice brisk pace. It doesn't linger too long. It doesn't have like a middle act lull or anything like that. It has a nice brisk pace throughout. And finally, I just want to talk about the marketing for this movie does a very good job of not revealing all of the movie's big twists and turns. There's things that aren't covered at all in the marketing that are major parts of this movie, and I very much appreciate that about the film. With that said, let's start talking about the bad, and unfortunately, there's quite a bit wrong here. Right from the get-go, it looks wrong. It looks off. It doesn't match the look of Batman v Superman or Man of Steel. It feels like they tried to make it brighter, perhaps in post-production. Throughout the whole movie, scenes just look fake that shouldn't look fake. Like people standing in a cornfield should look like people actually in a cornfield because they should be shot in a cornfield, but it looks fake, like it's shot on a green screen. Places where they're on top of a building feel like they're on a sound stage or in front of a green screen. So the whole thing just has an off look to it that doesn't match the previous films, that looks fabricated and over-processed throughout. There's been a lot of talk about the CGI looking kind of cheap and bad. And it is, but even more so, just shots that aren't even big CGI shots look off and strange for some reason. And I don't know how much of that is just the simple fact that they wanted to brighten things up, or how much of it is some of the movie was shot by Joss Whedon, some was shot by Zack Snyder. It certainly feels like you can just see from the get-go which ones were shot by which person, because the look is so drastically different, sometimes from shot to shot. Moving on from there, the main villain, Steppenwolf, it just feels very much so like generic comic book bad guy that is evil and wants to conquer, and that's kind of it. And it's a villain that doesn't have a big backstory. It's got like mythology to it, but it's not like a character with depth that you understand. It's just a guy with a scheme to conquer planet Earth. And it's not like, to make the obvious comparison, Loki in the Avengers, who has like a charisma to him, a backstory of why he's doing. It's just generic evil bad guy with, you know, vocal processor on him to make him sound like big epic guy, and he's tough and can beat people up, and he has a horde of parademons to come in, but it's just cannon fodder and evil bad guy, mustache twirling villain type stuff. From there, the movie doesn't really have an ambition for what it's trying to be. Like, you can see where with Batman v Superman, Zack Snyder was trying to do this exploration of heroes and their roles and what that looks like and what that means and what would turn a hero to being brutal and cruel, and what would it be like if Superman was... There's all sorts of ideas being explored in that. All of that's gone here. There's a little bit of kind of guilt on Batman's shoulders and things like that, but it's not exploring big ideas. It's just bad guy shows up, let's get together to stop him. And even within that, it's not trying to be the most fun movie. It's not trying to be the jokiest movie. It's just more in this world with a little bit more jokes sprinkled into it, but it doesn't really feel like a Zack Snyder movie. It doesn't really feel like a Joss Whedon movie. It feels like little kind of elements from each of them sprinkled in there without a clear vision for what it's trying to be. The score for this movie was incredibly disappointing. There was nothing in the score that like popped out that I was like, oh, that's a cool piece of music, except a few times where there's allusions and kind of versions of previous scores for some of our heroes. But it never goes all out as much as you kind of want it to do with some of those elements. It doesn't bring something new to the table where you're like, oh man, I loved the Flash's theme. You don't get that. It's not like in Batman v Superman, a bunch of us loved Wonder Woman's theme. It at least was distinctive. You remembered it. There's not a bunch of any melodies from this movie that I remember that would be like, that was a really cool piece of music that they created for this. It was just kind of there. And with the way they kind of used some previous hero things, you just kind of thought, why didn't you do more with that? Why didn't you commit to doing that if you're going to do that a little bit? It just felt like so much wasted opportunity. And I think finally the thing that really hurt this movie for me is that just watching it, there was no memorable big sequences. There's no memorable scenes. There's some lines that were funny. Certainly as some of the quips and jokes, but rapport between the different people I really liked, but there were never just iconic scenes, amazing fight sequences. It was like, man, I want to keep watching that. Like I want to keep rewatching that Batman v Superman warehouse fight scene. There's not stuff like that in this movie. Just left you feeling like, okay, that was enjoyable enough. I kind of liked that a good bit, but there wasn't anything that made me drawn back, man, I want to see that sequence again. Really at all. I want to hear that dialogue again, that great, amazing conversation. It was just like, yeah, some of those quips were kind of nice. It was the best it kind of got with being memorable in general. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, I gotta say the bad outweighs the good slightly on this one. I'm gonna go 5.5 out of 10. I can't say I recommend it. It's just slightly under a recommendation for me. I love these characters. This should be an easy on base for me. But the lack of direction, the clear shifts in tones and look, and everything feeling off about it just makes me say I cannot actually recommend this movie. And if I'm being honest, it's one, if you're interested, you don't need to rush out to see it because there's not a lot that's memorable here. You're not going to miss much if you just wait to go see it on Redbox, unfortunately. But how about you? Did you love it? Try and convince me down in the comment section. I want to like this movie. I want to love this movie, actually. But the end result really underwhelmed me and left me feeling very disappointed across the board. Besides maybe Ezra Miller being a ton of fun, almost everything else felt like, I want more. Why couldn't you give me more? Why couldn't you give me something more memorable and iconic? With the Justice League movie, this should be easy to get on base, to knock it out of the park. And they didn't, unfortunately. But that's just my take on it. How about you? Tell me what you thought down below in the comment section. And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos. I'm going to be ranking all the DCEU movies in just a couple of days. Or if you're watching this in the future, check it out at that playlist. Hopefully you'll love that video. But I don't want to just talk about movies, I want to talk about movies with you. So join me down in the comment section, let's have a lively discussion, and thank you so much for watching.